And we are live with episode 192 of the Start Build Grow Show. This is a treat, y'all. We can't wait to hop into it. We're about to talk all things commercial as we get into it. Let's go. All right, we have two very special guests, and I will first introduce them and then kick it over to Mr. Randy Brothers. We've got Eric Oberempt of D&M Roofing based out of Lincoln, Nebraska, I believe. Is that correct? Or out of Omaha, Nebraska. Excuse me, not Lincoln, Omaha. And then Mr. Paul Reed with Northwest Roofing, and two gentlemen that are actually spearheading a lot of interesting and unique initiatives with helping our roofers in some different ways, which we'll get into a little bit in the show with Roofers in Recovery. I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Randy Brothers. How we doing? And hope everybody's having a great Monday so far. So,
what is up, everybody? Man, I'm excited. This is a long time coming, man. I've known these guys for a long time. We've done a lot of awesome things together. Honestly, two of my probably favorite people in the industry. They no bullshit. They tell it like it is, and what you see is what you get, and I absolutely love that. That is what this industry needs. And two of the most influential people. You guys are making some big moves, and I'm just grateful to have you grace our show with your presence. But Mr. Paul Reed with Northwest Roofing and Eric Oberembt, man, really excited to have you guys here. You guys got a lot of stuff going on. Both of you, commercial roofers. Both of you, working on, with the Commercial Roofing Academy, which is just changing lives and impacting the industry at a high level. But I don't want to spoil it, but that's not even where the passion is. That's not really what drives both of you. So we're going to get into some of that, but welcome to the show, both of you guys. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother. Glad to be
here.
So
I'm actually really impressed, though. I have to say that you had Eric's name correct, the way you pronounced his last name. I was really impressed with that, both of you guys.
That's really good. Did you guys do homework on that?
We did. We rehearsed the show a whole bunch. We said it back and forth to each other like 38.6 times to make sure we got it right.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, I've known you guys long enough to know that that's a thing. So I appreciate it.
It took Paul 3 years.
It did.
Come on now.
Hey, he's got 4 letters in each of his first names, so
right.
It's not that difficult for him.
That's cheap.
Yeah.
So let's hop into it right out the gates. We're talking about commercial, and obviously, Randy, I know that you know these gentlemen more than I do, but just through our casual conversations and stuff that we've talked about, obviously there's a lot of value you all bring around the commercial topic. Eric, your background was starting in commercial as a young kid, went to the residential side, back to the commercial side. Paul, very traditionally going through the residential side, then getting into commercial. If both of you kind of just open us up with kind of your expertise, and not necessarily have to only be specific around the commercial side, but would just like for each of you to share, maybe Eric, kick off with you with kind of your quick journey and what you found along the way specific with commercial.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks again, guys, for having us on. This is fun. So I started when I was a kid. My grandfather actually started our business like way back in the 60s. And I lived with my grandparents growing up since I was about 7. And I started getting up on commercial roofs when I was literally about 10 years old on old tar and gravel roofs. And that was kind of how I learned the business and learned how to do installs. And I ran a kettle and I slung a mop and I got scars all over myself to prove it. And we did that for a really long time. And we were, a really small company. We were mom and pop with a, flatbed truck and a kettle and, a crew of 4 guys. And my grandpa would go out and sell jobs and then we'd put them on. And then as I got older, I would sell them and then go put them on. So we'd have a little bit more bandwidth. And then in about the early 2000s, we got hit with some storms here in Omaha. And funny story. So literally we were sitting out in my grandpa's driveway. My grandpa would literally sit in his driveway on his lawn mower tractor, and he would sit out there and drink a beer and just watch cars drive up and down the street. And one day, lost Paul. One day,
we'll get him back.
And one day, a truck drove by and saw my grandpa's truck sitting there, and it said, and our name of our business was on the decal in the window. And so the guy stopped and he asked my grandpa if he had any work. And he was like, no, we don't do residential. He's like, well, if you ever do, call me, I'll put them on. We're like, all right, cool. So we get hit with a storm like not long after that. And we start getting a few phone calls and I start selling residential. And I was like, wow, this is a lot easier than me having to get up on the roof and put them on. And I was like, can we start doing more of this so I don't have to work so damn hard? And he was like, yeah, I don't care. As long as we hit numbers, like, yeah, that's fine. As long as we can all pay each other, like, yeah, go for it. So I kind of started shifting our business to the residential side, honestly, just because I was tired of working so damn hard. I did that for a really long time. And then right around 2014, 2015, when Grandpa passed away and I took over 100% of the company at that time, I remembered how much I really enjoyed doing commercial work and working with those types of clients. And so I decided to make an intentional shift back to the commercial side, which at the time I had no clue how to do it because all of those old clients that we had for years were dead because, you know, they were all my grandpa's clients, you know, 30 years ago. So I had to sit down and figure out, like, how do I go find these clients? And that was what I started, you know, trying to figure out on my own. And so now that's kind of the stuff that we teach, you know, at CRA as well.
Awesome.
So now we're probably about 70-30 commercial to residential now. And I really enjoy that side of the business a lot more.
That's great. Paul, I know your story looks a little different, and I know that you're not in the best cell coverage, but we're going to try to get a clean audio from you. Oh, he just dropped.
No,
he's gone. Cool. We'll continue with the. It's all right. He'll be back, I'm sure.
That's why there's two of us.
Yeah.
that way make one human.
Yeah. It'd be a little awkward silence.
Test.
Randy and I'd be talking. Man, this is going great. So I guess just to kind of continue on that. Oh, hold on. Paul's coming back in. Paul, you with us?
Yeah, guys, I apologize. Someone calls me and then my car grabs the audio and it's awful. So I was there literally the whole time. No, I think, you know, for me, I started when I was 18 in residential, you know, really small community, literally where it was like me and my cousin going out and, you know, getting a job, selling it, you know, we didn't know what, literally just like day wages. So, you know, like we didn't understand like our numbers back then. We thought, you know, if you could make $1,000 and it took you a week to do the job, that was like really good money because you made $500 a piece. We didn't understand about like overhead or anything like that, but did that for a long time. And then when we moved to Denver 15 years ago, you know, started in the residential into the kind of the storm world and, you know, built up to doing 3,000 roofs a year. And, you know, really one of the things that's amazing to me, and I looked back, one of my drives to really get into commercial was I knew that, you know, I was part owner of a very large roofing company, but I really wasn't a business person at all. I was really a roofer that just got lucky and did, you know, 3,000 roofs a year. And so one of my drive was really trying to get into like the whole business into it and kind of at that point understanding relationships and things like that to be able to, you know, do what we do now. So that was our transition, was my desire really to learn more about the business. And to be honest with you, the commercial side of it looked a little more appealing to me than dealing with 3,000, you know, residential customers a year.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think just the uniqueness of both of your backgrounds. I know we'll talk about that. The title of this week's episode is residential to commercial, the how, the when, the why. And I think that just to kind of continue to open up this onion as we start to look deeper into the commercial conversation to offer value for our listeners here. You guys have different paths, but ultimately have led you back to being very commercially focused because, you know, for whatever reasons. And that's why I kind of want to get into that is what specifically drives you in commercial, and why ultimately do you, I mean, obviously you have Commercial Roofing Academy, and you all are very invested in making sure that folks are getting the proper training when it comes to understanding how to deal with commercial, because it is such a different animal than residential, from the standpoint of the business owners or the property managers or whatever that you're dealing with directly, or folks that are coordinating that project alongside you, and how different that is from the standpoint of that to residential. So tell us a little bit about why residential is so, commercial is such a passion of yours, and why you love it. Not say that, residential is typically referred to as the base hits, but the home runs being commercial. Why is that you guys really enjoy commercial so much?
So, while he's buffering, I'll go ahead and jump in. The reason that I enjoy it and that I'm passionate about it is I like having conversations that aren't necessarily emotional. And when you're dealing with homeowners, a lot of the decision-making process, because they're so invested into their home, you get more of a emotional conversation that you have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
When you're dealing with a commercial client, you get to have higher level business conversations. Jesus Christ.
I just muted him. Go ahead.
Yeah, good call. You get to have higher level like business conversations and ROI conversations, right? And that makes more sense to me than having to have the emotional conversation of they care about what color their roof is, right? And they're making emotional decisions on that, where a commercial property owner or manager, especially on like a low slope, retail strip center, or something like that, they don't give a shit if it's white or if it's purple or if it's orange. They just want it to not leak. They want it to fit within a budget. They want it done on a timeline. They want their tenants happy, right? Like all those things make sense, when you're having that conversation. And that's what made me passionate about digging back into that, because I enjoy that. I enjoy having those conversations, and there's nothing that honestly drives me more crazy than having to have the conversation with somebody about a $20,000 roof.
Yeah.
Right. And you're arguing over a $2,000 deductible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a much longer like cycle, and you can actually build real like relationships. And obviously we talk about relationships and everything, right? But now you're talking, I'm not just like courting you to be a good roofer for this one project that you're going to do in the next 20 years. This is like, how do we become business partners? Like, how do we build an alliance that we connect on and really help each other and go to a whole nother level from a business to business perspective? I'm with you. I love that piece of it too.
100%. I mean, you're building a relationship that's going to hopefully last a long time, as long as you service that customer properly. And if you don't, I mean, you're out, right? I mean, you screw up and you don't fix whatever your screw up was before it gets to the top, level, like you're not going to work with them again. But to be able to have that opportunity to actually build a relationship is actually kind of exciting, other than just sign, go, sign, go, sign, go. I enjoy that building relationships aspect of the business.
Yeah.
That's good, man.
You got to be prepared for the long game though, too, right? I mean, I've learned that too. It
takes a long time.
You've been doing it a while, and same with me. I run commercial. We have a commercial company as well, and we were very intentional. Well, I would say like 4 or 5 years ago, like we're going to launch a commercial division. We're going to go all in. Not just before that, it was like selling residential roofs and accidentally connecting with somebody that happened to have a commercial roof here and there, and I would do a couple a year or whatnot. But then we decided, no, let's be intentional and actually launch commercial division in our business. And it's a whole different world, and you got to understand you're playing the long game. You're not just trying to get a 15-minute contract or an hour-long contract. We literally have a deal right now that has been in the process for over 2 years.
Yeah.
And you got to be prepared for that level of commitment, right?
It's a different mindset for your sales guys too, right? I mean, you can't have it doesn't always work out where you can take your best residential rep and turn them into a biz dev, a BDR or a commercial sales rep. It does not usually translate, right? Because it is a completely different mindset, because they have to understand that long game. And residential reps are so used to knock a door, sign a deal, put the roof on, get paid, move to the next one, right? And knock out as many as you can in a week and blah, blah, blah. Some of these jobs take months just to do.
Yep.
not even talking about how long it takes them to close, right? I mean, you sign a deal today with somebody, you might not get to build that thing, like you said, for a year and a half, 2 years, going through all the hoops and the hurdles, especially if it's an insurance claim.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you addressed something, Eric, that I think will be a good segue to go into. Hopefully we can get Paul back on here to share his thoughts. But in the meantime, you just mentioned a little bit about the commercial team. I know, Randy, you've got a commercial team. My business is still in its infancy. We're very heavy on residential, haven't gotten back into the commercial game yet. But I know from a structure standpoint, a lot of companies will kind of, everybody has kind of a different model by the way they follow. You know what I mean? Some are like owner takes on the commercial. I know, our friend, I think we all mutually, Chase Johnson out of Colorado, we talked with him. It's like he runs the commercial part of his business, and then he has all the base hits done by his reps that are in residential, right?
Yep.
And then we've got some that'll put, like Randy's, but a lot of focus into building a commercial team and trying to help train everybody on all the nuances and all the things that it takes to really build an effective sales team. So let me add Paul back in here real quick. Paul, you with us, brother?
Man, I apologize because I'm like that complete loser. I just had a conversation with Eric last month about how disrespectful it is when someone's supposed to be on a Zoom and they don't have good service. So
we did have that conversation.
Don't worry. Here at the SBG show, we're just chopped liver, right? We're
all good.
The lowest on the totem pole. It's cool.
It's all good, brother. So to finish my question, the question I was asking Paul is team structure. I've alluded to that a little bit. Eric, just because I asked you that question, tell me a little bit about your insight, what you have seen work for you, and how you've kind of structured that for your business.
So I do it similar to the way that you explained, like how Chase does it. Like I kind of run the commercial side of the business just because honestly, I enjoy it. It's something that I talk about at CRA and a lot when I'm training other people, is that I sat down and I started making a list of all the stuff that I like to do, the stuff that I don't like to do, and like everything else that I do. And I started hiring to not have to do the shit that I don't like to do, so that I can focus on the stuff that I enjoy. And running commercial, I mean, literally like running commercial inspects, I enjoy that. So I'm going to do it. Having meetings with property managers or building owners, I enjoy that. So I started working that. But what I hate doing is business development. I hate going to networking coffees and golf tournaments and all the crap that goes into the stuff that you have to do.
Sure.
But I hated doing that. So I started hiring for that. And then I help lead and train the BDR reps and the sales reps on how to interact with those humans and to provide the most value to them. So that's how I structured mine. And I'm not, you'll ask Paul the same question and he'll tell you something very similar, but different because, his operation is obviously larger than mine is, but we have a lot of similarities in how we split that up. But I don't let my residential guys mingle business wise with my commercial guys. I keep them completely separate so that they understand that, like, this is the commercial team, this is a residential team. If you want to jump ship, you're jumping ship completely and learning a whole new skill set. Like, you're not going back and dabbling into this.
That's good. Yeah. So Paul, the question that I led with to kind of open this conversation is,
I mean, don't get excited. It's not going to last long enough where he's going to be able to answer, but go ahead.
Oh, it is. I'm in good service.
No, you're good. I can see the grainy is gone. So that's good. So first, and you can answer the same question in a second, but first, what makes you so passionate about the commercial space? What makes you love that? I say we, don't want to say that we have any favorites here, but you guys are obviously commercial focused, love commercial. Tell us a little bit what about why that is, and then followed up by that question, which is, how do you kind of structure your commercial piece? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That's a great question. So listen, why I'm so passionate about like just roofing in general, number one, is the lifestyle, the opportunities that it's created, for me. I mean, I don't mean to get like all emotional right about this, but think about like our life today, what it could be, without roofing. It's a night and day difference. I really believe that. I don't think I would have been successful being a whatever else, but roofing, we were afforded such a great opportunity with it. And I get a little bit frustrated sometimes when I see and realize, because, just like you guys, we do a lot of consulting, talk to a lot of different people, and you see sometimes the opportunity they have that they're just like not maximizing.
Told you.
Yeah, I think he was saying that they're not maximizing the opportunity, and you've talked about this before. Even you talks about it at the CRA event as well, and I believe the same thing. I mean, so many people find their way into roofing from one way or another, and they just don't realize what they have.
Yeah.
Right. We don't take it. We take it for granted, and we don't realize the true opportunity that we have, not just to provide for ourselves and for our, our own families, but to create opportunities for other people just like us, people that couldn't have been successful elsewhere. Right. So I'll turn it back over to you, my friend.
Yeah, if I put my phone in airplane mode, would I still be on? That would restrict people.
I think it's going to make us lose you, but yeah, just go ahead and
never mind.
Do
put it on do not disturb.
Do not
yeah,
disturb.
do not disturb.
Do not disturb. Pull down from the top right,
Okay,
and then click the little button on the left.
So there's a little educational piece for those of you.
Sometimes hanging out with Paul is like teaching your grandpa to use the remote to watch fucking TV.
Which one's the do not disturb button?
The one that looks like a moon, I think, is. I don't know.
Yes. Did you find it?
I love it. So for those of you listening on the podcast, watch this live. You got to watch the videos of these because the entertainment factor is a lot higher.
Yeah. So Paul, real quickly,
to that previous question. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're good. Real quickly, tell us specifically how you've configured your commercial squad.
Okay. So my first run with the commercial obviously was, a complete debacle. I mean, it worked obviously, or we wouldn't be here today. But one thing I noticed right away was in commercial, you either are or you aren't in commercial. You can't really be both. I don't think you could serve two masters because I think they're completely two different beasts, residential and commercial. And to further my point, I first realized that about, say, 5 years ago. That the magazine that comes out, the Roofer Contractor magazine, they have the top 100 list. Well, they have the top 100 list, and it has a couple really key stats, I believe. It says, number one, like what revenue they did, which a lot of it's kind of crap, I think, but whatever. But then the second piece says residential and commercial split. And if you start looking at a lot of the really successful companies, literally all of them, it would say they are 98% commercial and 2% residential. Or they were 98% residential or 100% residential and 0 commercial. There were very few, if not, maybe call it one or two, that claimed, they were a $28 million a year company and they were 50-50, right? And I just think that they were kind of anomalies, outliers that's really not the case. I mean, it could be, it probably is, but I think that you've got to be like focused, and I don't have enough bandwidth, right, to have both successful, and maybe you could have your company set up, but for us, we had to either be commercial or not. And so it was just a decision of like, hey, we're really successful in residential, but that's not what I want to do. I think there's more to it, and let's go into there. So that's kind of how we structured it. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I think, we went from 0 to 100, right? I think that a guy should probably do it a little wiser than we did. And that's what we teach is like, hey, let's get some guys, and that's all they do. Kind of like Eric's company. Like, you can't be over in residential and commercial. You either are or you aren't.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I can attest to that, but I'm also one of those like hard-headed entrepreneurs that are like, I want to figure this crap out, right? And and the way I approach it is more of a, I have a fantastic team, a great partner, and we were able to kind of, separate it out to where like one of us that's fully vested partner of the company focused on residential side, and that allowed me to kind of focus on the commercial side. But I think if one person is trying to do both, it's really hard to do. And then I've been blessed to have a great team. So I can oversee my team and develop a team and focus on training and sending them to CRA and doing all the things I can to develop their skill sets from a commercial standpoint to where it allows me to then act as a president act as, working on my business and not having to go into all these meetings, even though I kind of would like to more, but because of what I do now in the industry and with the coaching stuff, that's, it makes more sense that I have a team in place to execute that I just oversee. But there, it's definitely quite challenging, and we're probably a little bit of an anomaly, but again, I'm just hard-headed as an entrepreneur because I want to crack that nut. I want to be able to do 15, 20 million residential and 15, 20 million on commercial, and be able to execute that. But we'll continue to fight that good fight, but probably need to look at Uncle Paul here and make make some adjustments to how we execute.
I think that you're the rarity to that, though. There's very few people that could do it. I could probably count on one hand how many people in the entire industry could probably make that work, because the way you're structured. Because you said one key thing, you have a partner as well that is capable and and is a good person. They go out and do that, because I think a lot of single owners, I don't know too many that could actually pull it off.
Yeah.
So again, back to some of the title of the episode. So I just want to make sure that the listeners, I know we've had some funny stuff happen over the last few minutes here. It's good answers to our questions, gents, but I just want to kind of stay on course of saying, hey, the how, the when, the why. We answered the why first, why commercial. Now the how. So let's talk specifically about just hit us with some gold nuggets, if you will. I don't want to spoil it for the end because we always ask for a gold nugget at the end, but just tell us, like, when someone's sitting there and they're saying, hey, I'm playing in the residential game and I'm playing this, transactional type of business, right? That we all know, short-lived, storm work, residential, whatever it may be, it's still transactional, right? You might be able to work off of some referrals. It might lead you into some commercial stuff. I've had that happen to me personally, where you do some folks' house, they happen to be a property manager or owner, an office, building owner, something like that. Cool. But just specifically from the standpoint of where we go from residential to commercial, what are some maybe 1, 2, 3 really dire points that you need to make around how to make an entry into the commercial space as a young entrepreneur in this industry?
I mean, the first thing that I'll say is don't just jump in without thinking that you are going to figure it out, right? Like, this is not a game that you just figure out, because that's what puts companies under. So that's number one, is like, go get the proper coaching, training, team up with somebody, get a mentor, get, something of that effect. And again, this isn't me trying to pitch what we do, but it's super, super important to do that, because your learning curve will get, cut, so much. And B, hopefully you won't have to pay the same. And Paul says it all the time, and I'm just going to steal your shit, Paul, because that's what you do too. Is don't pay the dumb tax that we did, right? Because we paid a lot of dumb tax, starting out. That's one. Is find a mentor, find a coach, find a group, find something to be able to learn, because there's so much that we don't have time here, right, to go into it. But the second thing is understand what we talked about a little bit in the beginning, is that you have to be prepared for the long game, and you have to be prepared to start making relationships and partnerships, right? Relationships and partnerships with your, if you're going after property management, or if you're going after certain types of buildings or whatever it is, you need to be prepared to play that long game, and that it might take you a year, to really put those relationships and those partnerships in place. There was one other one, but I bet Paul knows I was going to say, so I'll let Paul say it.
No, I think to me, first thing that you got to really look at is you need to sit down and you really need to make a plan, right? Because I and Randy, you coach, and Connor, you guys coach a ton more people than we do, but most people are kind of just going by the seat of their pants in residential, just waiting on a storm and, hey, let's go knock some doors, sign some contracts, right? Yep. I think with this, you need to actually look at it and figure out what your liability is. I say this, one of the first things I ever say in what we do is, hey, you have massive liability now. The first thing the first roof that you screw up in residential, and if you haven't done one yet, you will. You're going to redo a roof here eventually if you haven't. but you probably have, it's going to cost you $6,000 or $7,000. In the commercial world, you need to have the understanding that we're added zeros and commas to everything that we do. The liabilities have zeros and commas on them now. And so I call it that residential mindset, and you need to get out of the residential mindset and really become a business owner. So that's the, like, to me, that's the how, is becoming a business owner. Even though right now you may run a multi-million-dollar business in roofing and residential roofing, you may not be actually running your business, right? And I know you guys see that all the time, and it's kind of scary.
Yep.
And hell, I did it for, the first 20 some years of my career. I was a roofer that happened to have $1 million business.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think the one thing, if anything, I can offer to this podcast from experience of commercial, so especially from working with clients, is to know that in the commercial game, you have to know your numbers, right? You have to.
Yeah.
If you don't, you'll be out of business, very short-lived in business and being commercial, right? And I think that's the biggest thing, that is what you're referring to, Paul, which is that's what we're trying to do, I think, collectively, especially as you guys have your the Commercial Roofing Academy piece, but then TRA for Randy and I is trying to help businesses become businesses, not just operating as this, hey, we're, like you said, in the storm response, we know that if our material and labor and our commission outweigh we know what that looks like, and we're selling it at a price where we can get a gross profit. Typically, there's very limited overhead in a lot of those businesses, right? There's not a lot of liability, as you mentioned. So I think that's a big, powerful point there to be made on this show here, is that if you're a guy that or gal that is running an organization in the commercial or in the residential space that's looking to make it commercial, and if you don't know your numbers first and foremost, it'll be very short-lived, because there's a lot more that goes into the commercial side and then goes into the residential side from a preparation standpoint, actually knowing how to build a legitimate business. So I love that point. We got a couple.
Actually, so really quickly, I got to throw this into Randy. Randy, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like when we did a bid, we just were like, $350 a square, right?
Yep.
Whatever. It didn't matter what the hell it was.
I'd even drive by and eyeball it and be like, look about 36.
Yeah.
About 36 square. Yeah.
Yep. And even when
912,
even when we were working as salespeople, right? It was like, well, on this one, you go to the manager and be like, all right, what do I bid for this job? They're like, how many layers? 2 layers. Okay. How big? It's 30-something squares. All right. You're at $320 a square. No rhyme or reason. You just throw the number out there and hope you get the deal.
Just made some shit up. Yep.
Hey. Yeah. In that resi game, you could still practically do that. Price increases. Some people are about 10 price increases behind, but
Oh yeah, commercial right now. That's a huge. I mean, we don't have enough time to go into that challenge right now. But so real quick though, we definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsors, and we got some questions we're going to answer, and then we're going to dive in some more exciting stuff, to more stuff that's really that really drives these men as well as myself, and some of the passion stuff that we're doing outside of roofing. But before that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it to Connor. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsors for tonight.
Our sponsor here is Job Nimbus. We're gonna play the episode. I also see your questions. Just want to make sure the folks don't leave us during the commercial. I'm gonna get to your questions here, but we got this quick commercial.
If you aren't using Job Nimbus, you should be.
The effects that it's going to have on my personal life, I can see is automation is going to change the way I live.
We've been able to eliminate all the paper, all of our paper files, and actually everything is online for us now.
All right, so jobnimbus.com, if you want to go check them out. Industry-leading CRM, changing the way things are done, all things in the roofing space. Go check them out at jobnimbus.com. Appreciate them as our exclusive sponsor to Start, Build, Grow Show and the Roofing Academy. So to the questions, we have a few here. So Eric Richardson said, now that I have about 20 in-house roofers, all hourly, would you say this is a good time to become more commercially focused? We do about 20% as of right now. Now I know Eric personally, and he's out of California region, so he's got a few W-2 laws and things like that where he has to do all the in-house roofing, but don't know if that's a question you guys would be willing to answer. I know that's the labor piece of it obviously is important from commercial, but maybe just share a little bit more about kind of answering that question, but then share a little bit more about what else goes into that, not just the roofing labor side of things, right?
I mean, my first question would be, do they actually know how to do commercial installs?
Yeah.
Right. Because most of those guys, they know how to do, you know what I mean? Like you don't take your guy that does shingles and try to teach him how to do a TPO. So, I mean, that would be the first question you need to answer first.
Yeah. Cool. Paul, did you have a response to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's where I went with it. I forgot about the liability part that Eric just brought up. So thank you, Eric. But my mind started spinning going, man, if I had 20 in-house people, I would start looking at some more of these maybe government contracts and different places I could get out that required actual employees, because there's a huge gap. I mean, the majority of roofing companies rely on freaking subs, and there's a whole big world out there that if you would have employees, especially 20, and you're setting pretty well.
Yeah, you can start building all the Davis.
That'd be my thought with that.
All the Davis Bacon jobs and all that stuff. Yeah,
that's good. Yep. That's good. That's a good answer there, Eric. Run with that, brother. Yeah, and then I think we already answered this. If someone decides that we become if they want to become a commercial roofer, what does that take? I think that was answered in the last segment, so that's good. So let's transition a little bit, and then I'll let Randy ask some questions too. I just want to make sure we get through this bit before we transition to some of the other conversation about what you guys are doing outside of just the commercial space of roofing. So the win, right? I know that there's a lot of guys. I mean, this kind of ties in almost into Eric's question there that asks, like, when is a good time to get into commercial roofing? I know that there's the how and the why, but then we have this when. Does the business need to look a certain way? Is there, I know we said already a little bit about some of the like kind of refocusing on or putting our focus towards commercial specifically. So if you guys want to share a little bit about what in your experience, like when has been good timing, or when is kind of one of the stars aligned for you to help kind of get you in a position where you're ready to execute commercial?
Yeah, I think depending on your market, one of the things that I did was I started noticing, all of a sudden there's like 6,000 residential roofers here in Denver. And then I started seeing a pattern, because I'm kind of a roof nerd, right? And so I'm kind of wanting to know who's roofing what buildings, blah, blah, blah. I started noticing it was the same 3 or 4, 5 companies in my market here in Denver that were doing all the multifamily, and they were doing all the HOAs, the same 3 or 4 or 5. So I'm going to look at it like in my market. I'm going to do some research. Who's doing what work? Where is there a soft spot? And where can I where can I build my company to kind of get into that market? You look back, 10 years ago, again, it was 3 or 4 or 5 companies in Denver that was doing all the multifamily, all the HOA. I knew there had to be a soft spot into going into there. So I went from competing against 6,000 residential roofers to now where, there's 100 residential guys that are trying to get into commercial in here, but they fall off. But I would recommend really doing your research, and where can you really kind of find a hole? Is there a hole in your market for low slope? Is there only 1 or 2 companies that kind of control the whole thing? Can you get in on that market, train your guys up, take classes, get some consultants, some coaching? Can I get in that way? Just don't do it really like broad, but narrow it down. Hey, there's a hole in HOA. Start going into property managers,
Yeah. Well, I think you can look at the demographic of the job size too. A lot of these, there's going to be the 80-20 rule. 20% of the contractors in any big market, especially like ours, Paul, 20% are doing 80% of the work on the commercial side, right? And those 20% are looking for the big dog, the 80% size jobs. They're looking for the big jobs because they got the huge overhead and they want to land a job that's going to last 2-3 months to have their crews on it and keep going. Where they're not going to put as much, they're still doing it, but they're not putting as much intentional energy in the base hits, so to speak, right? The 100 square jobs.
Correct.
Where the big guys are looking for the 1,000 square jobs. So figure out, and then I would also say, speaking from experience as well, is, be careful whale hunting. Base hits win ball games. Okay. Yep. We all think we want to just go for that well and go for that big $2 million HOA, but that's a real quick way if one thing goes wrong to go out of business.
Yeah,
okay?
perfect.
So let's get the base hits first. Let's get the 100 square TPO, full run, mechanically fastened job. Let's get that job and do really good and do that a bunch of times and get really good at that job. Build up the credibility, get the referrals, get the relationships built, and then start going for the 300, the 500, the 1,000 square jobs. Work your way up there. That's what I would say.
because that's how you
That
build
$2 million
That's
HOA
what-
job's going to take you 2 years to get. It's going
Right.
to take you a long time. You need to fill it in with those other jobs in the meantime.
Yeah.
And that builds your portfolio.
Yep.
Right. Because you're going to have to build your portfolio. Because if you try to sit down in front of an HOA board or an apartment complex or something, and you're trying to do 5,000 squares and you've done 100, you know what I mean? Like it's not going to fly. They're not going to want to hire you. But if all of a sudden you've got this book of business that you've done a ton of these jobs, even if they are a little bit smaller, they're building up, right? And you can show that portfolio and that track record, because that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Good,
I think that was one of the biggest challenges, right? This question come up a little, how do I get in? How do I break in? That was one of the biggest challenges. I remember when I was first, trying to go sell commercial roofs as a residential contractor, and where's your references? What jobs have you done? Like, show me pictures, show me, like, I didn't have any of that. Like, how did that's a difficult one, because it's like, you want to be able to get in with these big companies and get in to become the roofer, but you don't have the credibility yet. You don't have the jobs underneath your belt to do that. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but I somehow was able to convince somebody to write me $100,000 check to do a roof. I think I made like $4,000 on the deal, but like, we got a big roof. We did a big TPO job. We did a good job. We took pictures, and then we went to the next person. Hey, look what we did here. Now we can do, and you just work your way up to build that credibility as a commercial roofer.
That's good.
Yep.
We got one more question here before we transition. How do you structure the quotes to be relevant? If you're put in a situation, how do you structure quotes to be relevant 3 months after a board were to vote? So when you guys do anything that's like working on bids that might take a longer period of time, and with material increases or around that type of context, like what does that look like? How do you guys execute that if it's something that's a little bit longer of a process?
You're setting expectations very clearly in the beginning, right? That prices are good for this many days, and you need to understand that price increases we're taking every 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, are going to have to be passed on. I mean, it has to be. It goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning of the show, when Randy was talking about relationships, and that we were, that we're building these relationships with these people over time. And if you've built the relationship properly, you can have that conversation. Sure. Right? If you haven't built that relationship properly, it's going to be very difficult to have that conversation. But if you have, it'll give you the opportunity to set proper expectations, so it doesn't feel like you're just dropping a pile of shit on their plate, 3 months later, to be like, oh, it's 20% more. Sorry. But if you're continuously keeping them updated, I mean, every time you get a letter from Beacon, or your manufacturer that says prices are going up, shoot it over. Be like, FYI, this isn't me making stuff up. This is what's coming down the pipe. Let's have this conversation, and let's stay open and transparent with each other. It's all about setting proper expectations.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's 100% all it is. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned this. I mean, we had our sales meeting earlier today, and one of our guys, just landed like a $200,000 residential deal. It's a big monster deal, a lot of work. And I was like, all right, this is a great opportunity to coach the guys, right? What can we learn from that? And he was like, transparency. From the get-go was just straightforward and transparent with the clients. It's an insurance deal, and it was completely changed over and over. It was a long time coming, long process, almost like a commercial process, really, because there's a lot of side work and stuff, which, going against my own thing, we don't necessarily do that, but in a certain circumstance, it's worth it. But that it was all about the transparency, and that's what he said. Like, how did they choose our company and me to do the roof over the 6,000 other roofers that are out there in this market? Straightforward honesty and transparency, backed by a good brand, was really how we did that. So I think that's a huge takeaway for anybody as we start to wrap this commercial segment up. Like, just be real, be genuine, do what you say you're going to do, be transparent, and treat your contacts like humans. Like, this is a human to human, business to business relationship, not a transactional, give me your money so I can go buy a Ferrari relationship. Like,
it's pretty amazing what honesty does. Yeah. And you separate yourself in this industry by actually being honest.
Yeah. I think we didn't talk about your podcast. Your podcast, Be Authentic or Get the Bleep Out. I'll leave it on the podcast here, but it's just, I know, just for the viewers here. But no, we I think that's always the thing that I think the four of us can certainly say that we lead with honesty and transparency and authenticity, and it'll lead you. It might not be the easiest conversation, but it'll lead you down the path of being able to have those more difficult conversations in a very transparent way, right?
Yep,
So,
100%.
all right, so we're going to take a quick commercial break here with a short clip for Hook Agency, and then we're going to transition and hop to our next segment.
Is it time to turn the heat up on your marketing?
Our website's now been live for 4 months. We did just under $100,000 of leads coming out of organic SEO.
All right, hookagency.com. They are all things SEO PPC. I know that the guys, Tim, and the folks over at Hook Agency would love to schedule a call with you, give you a free SEO evaluation. Hookagency.com. Go check them out.
I mean, anybody that throws a flamethrower in a commercial, how can you go wrong?
Right? Hey, I want that guy to do my marketing.
Yeah. The tune is a banger, man. The tune's a banger. Yeah. All right, so we're going to transition here. Let's talk a little bit, and Randy, I'll let you kick this one off about the
Yeah. So really, I'm just going to deflect here in a minute because I think it was originally started. The two of you started it possibly, but there's something that's not enough people talk about. This is an industry. There's over 100,000 roofers, hundreds of thousands, if not a million people that are in the roofing industry. And unfortunately, I think with any industry, there is a rampant challenge and issue with substance abuse, especially in any sort of construction trades. It just I don't know what the exact correlation is, but there's always been challenges there. And you guys are very passionate about this, and we're always as people who are passionate about helping and serving our industry. We're always looking for ways to do that, to help serve the industry, help improve the industry by helping improve the lives of the people that are in the industry. And you guys have really latched onto that and kind of made it, a mission in life to do that by starting Roofers in Recovery. Now, I don't want to take the spotlight. I want to kind of start with how did that come about? What happened? Share your, parts of your story if you'd like. And let's share the viewers a little bit about Roofers in Recovery. And I also want to talk about this upcoming event that we have, of Roofers Day, right? Roofers in Recovery Day, where a lot of us are rallying around to generate some money to really support the cause. So go ahead and give us the background on that.
You want to tell the story, Paul, or you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll fill in.
Okay. So the way it started was I was driving down the road and Paul called me and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could send somebody to treatment every year because that saved our lives?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool. How do we do that?" And he's like, "I don't know. Why don't we each throw 10 grand into a pot and see if we can find somebody who needs to go to rehab?" And I was like, "All right, sounds good." So we did that. And we found somebody that needed to go to rehab and sent them. Then all of a sudden, people kind of started coming out of the woodwork that wanted help and wanted to talk and this, that, and the other. And then all of a sudden it started spiraling, and we ended up setting it up as an official 501c3, where get all the tax benefits, all that kind of stuff. But the really cool thing was we started holding recovery meetings at conferences. And that was when it really kind of started taking off, because you'd go to these conferences where there'd be obviously thousands of people, and most of them there are there to get screwed up, party, have a good time, whatever, not really even focus on why they're there. And there was a lot of people at these conferences that felt uncomfortable or not like they belonged, right? I mean, I know that's how I felt in the beginning when I first started going to conferences, and I would go hide in my room and felt super alone and, didn't know where to go. And it was actually at Storm Into the New Era. It was the first meeting we held, right, Paul? And I remember Paul texted me and he's like, "Should we have a meeting in the morning?" And I was like, "What time?" And he's like, 6. I'm like, shit, does it have to be 6? And he's like, "Yeah, I think it has to be 6. I was like, "Okay, let's have it at 6. So we had a meeting that morning at 6 or 6:30, and we had like 25 people show up. And we were like, holy cow, like that's a pretty big meeting. And we had like 25 people show up, and we're like, I think we're onto something. And we started holding these meetings at all the different conferences that we were attending. And it just kind of blew up. And now we've got a community of people that are, part of it.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that we're really pushing is there's such a stigma behind addiction or alcoholism, right? Like there's a lot of people that are like ashamed of it. And that prevents so many people from ever wanting help or getting help and recovering because they're embarrassed to talk about it. So when you hear us talk a lot of times, like I lead off a lot of times like, hey, my name's Paul. I've been sober coming up on 15 years now. And 15 years ago, I was in a mental hospital due to a meth addiction, because I think it's important to get the message out. Like, it's okay. Like if you're going through it, because in our industry, Randy and Connor, like the fact is our industry has more problems with alcoholism and addiction because it's the one industry there's like 0 bar to entry.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like if you have an addiction or alcoholism problem, like you're probably going to get disbarred as a doctor or potentially even a lawyer, depending on, the route you go. But like in roofing, we're very forgivable. You get fired from this company because you got caught with some coke, you go work for another company like no one cares. So we have a bigger issue than most industries because it's like, one, it's kind of accepted. 2, there's just so many of us out there. But there's so many people that are struggling and suffering with it because they're scared, they're embarrassed, they don't want other people to find out. So like we're kind of leading that charge of going like, hey, there's other people just like you. Me too. I get it. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
It's why we're so out there in the open, and we're making sure that people know who we are and that we're in recovery and that we have our past and that we're not ashamed of talking about it. Because like Paul said, people are scared and ashamed to talk about it, and there's a stat. We were challenged to go find a stat a while back. And the stat is that about 8% of the general population has alcoholism and addiction issues. In the roofing and construction industry put together, it's 16.5%.
Double.
So, I mean, it's literally double in our industry in construction and roofing than it is to the general public. Right there. That tells you something, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. And I love what you guys have done to do this. So I'm a contractor. You just struck a chord with me. How do I support? How do I get involved?
Well, there's a couple different ways. So first off is next week, June 3rd, is Roofers and Recovery Day. We ask that on that day, you take one of your residential jobs that you've sold and donate the profit to Roofers and Recovery. Pay your labor, pay your supplier. There's even been a few talk from a few suppliers. I'm not going to throw their names out, but we appreciate them that said, hey, if you hit me up, we'll probably take care of the material as well. So go ahead and do that. Hit up, all the big suppliers or manufacturers I meant. And that's how we're doing that, because our goal this year is to put 50 people in rehab. This last year, we were able to put over 20 people in. So we've doubled our goal. And this goes a long ways to do that. Plus, www.roofersandrecovery.com. There is a donate now button at the top.
Awesome. Well, I know we're committed. I know you sent out the information, and we sent it to our team, and we're going to be posting that day. We already got a, production coordinator is going to coordinate a job and like be all in, take some photos and kind of post and really do our part to kind of to on that. So I'm glad we're able to share that with our audience here. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you're watching the show, and you feel compelled. I mean, what Paul said earlier about the fact that we are so blessed to even be in this industry and to have the lives that we live because of this industry. I feel, we all feel that it's our responsibility to give back. We have to give back. We're so blessed and able to do what we do for a living and have the lives that we live. Like, the least we can do is give back. So that's why I've been a big passion. It's also affected my life, my family as well. So I'm always been really passionate about what you guys do. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to kind of share it and encourage those. So get involved, www.roofersandrecovery.com. Is that right? Or is that .org?
Yeah, it's .org, but .com, .com works as well. They direct to each other. And I dropped in the private chat over there, I dropped a Google link. It's a Google form, And so on that form, if we want to post it somewhere or put it in
well, I'll put it in the comments right now.
Yep.
Put it
So
in
if you click on that link, you can sign up to be part of June 3rd. We will be sending out another email, Paul, pretty soon, I hope, getting everybody the information to be able to make the donation and then be part of it. Because the other thing that we're doing is we want everybody that is that are doing the Roofers in Recovery Day, we want them to document the build and document your people being there and supporting you and all that, because we're in the process of filming a full-length documentary on Roofers in Recovery. We followed somebody through treatment. We're going to hopefully follow somebody else through treatment. We've went and interviewed counselors and different people at treatment facilities, and we want to have this be part of the documentary. So everybody that participates, and we're also going to get you like press releases to go send to your local news outlet, because we want to be able to show in the documentary how many different contractors from how many different states all over the country became part of this movement. So I think it's really exciting.
It's awesome.
I love that. That's
we could spend a whole podcast on Roofers in Recovery. Yeah. So maybe we do that here in the next few weeks or whatnot. We'll figure out some time to be able to do
I'll be in better service at that time. So
well, I don't know. I don't know if Paul gets to come back. Eric, you're back, bro. For sure.
I'm good. Okay.
He'll find the do not disturb for next
Paul's
time.
Paul's gonna have to submit a letter to HR.
He's trained now. So all right. Well, so last bit, I know we did this earlier, but each of you, if you wouldn't mind leaving us with your one gold nugget for the episode, we'll wrap this thing up. I'll let Randy sign us off, but let us know. Let the viewers have the last bit that you got. If you,
in true Nick fashion, right? Our previous host, he always picked on me first, because it gives you guys a couple minutes to think about it. And I know you guys are quick on your feet. You could do this on a whim, but we'll give you a minute, and I'll let Connor kind of pick on me first. But one of the things Eric said earlier, this is a generational business, and he mentioned his grandfather running the business, and it just reminded me of something that. That was kind of one of the biggest takeaways from my grandfather, who passed away a few years back. And one of the things, how he operated, old school businessman, ran businesses and one of the things that he really operated off of that I've still instilled to this day is, if you want if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all. Okay. No matter what you do, residential, commercial, roofing, non-roofing, so whatever it is you do in life, do it right or don't do it. Like, don't half-ass it. Don't tiptoe your way into something. Make a commitment and do it right. And if you mess up, fix it. That's part of doing something right. So you're going to make mistakes. So do it right or don't do it at all.
Love that. Let me go real quick. I just forgot I was supposed to go to a birthday dinner right now. So first golden nugget is remember to pee before you start an hour podcast, because I have had to pee so bad for the last 30 minutes. It's absolutely.
Why are you having to pee so much? Because you're drinking a gallon of water a day?
A gallon of water. Holy shit. The one thing that I will say is, because a lot of people tuned in because of commercial, it's a word that Paul and I use all the time, and it's intentional. Be intentional about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Find somebody to mentor you and coach you. Don't jump into commercial because you think you're going to hit that home run, like Randy said. Figure out how to do it right and know your numbers.
That's good. Paul?
That's good. No, to me, the most important thing that you really can do is understand the blessing that you have right now as being an owner in this company and what that really means, right? That's where your life is really going to change. If you could do anything right now, understand what you have. And if, there's a lot to that as far as knowing your numbers and all of those things. But one is just understanding, I like to call it a blessing, the blessing that you have to be in this industry and to be an owner or whatever position you're in, but understand where you're at right now, what your life looks like, and just honor that. Just honor where you're at right now and then grow from there.
Love it. All right, Mr. Randy, you want to take us to the outro?
Yep. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening in your vehicles. Thank you for tuning into the show. If you haven't already subscribed, Facebook, Start Build Grow Show, click the like button, click the subscribe button. We'll notify you every time we go live. We do go live every Monday at 4:00 p.m. Mountain Time. And then we also load it to all the main podcasting platforms. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple And make sure you subscribe and leave us a review, comments, and make sure you reach out to all the guests and all of us here. We're here to serve. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate the following of the show. Share with your friends, and God bless.